Hi, how's it going? This is Resident of Collinwood for YouTube, back with another Dark Shadows video for you guys and gals. This is episode 27 review of Dark Shadows from the beginning. Um, really great opening. I love the opening dialogue here by Alexandra Moltke. My favorite line is the reading where she says about the portraits and how they once looked down with pride, and now they see only the horror of unreasoning hatred. Great opening. Just great read. So Victoria, who enters, speaking of Victoria, Alexander's character, she enters the drawing room looking for David. And not too long after, she hears the doors to come into Collinwood open and shut. She wonders if it's David. She looks, it's Carolyn, and she asks if she saw David on her way up, to Collinwood. And she says, no, if I did, I'd cross the other side of the road. And Victoria says, this is no time for jokes. And, Carolyn says, you just don't know Indians are well off. and Victoria says, again, this is no joke. And Carolyn says, there's plenty of 9-year-old, he's just a 9-year-old kid, every 9-year-old kid. And Victoria says, how many of them how many of them try to commit murder? And which causes Carolyn, who was walking into the drawing room, to stop dead in her tracks and turn around and look at Victoria. And that's what leads us to our credits, to opening the fucking show. This is my favorite episode of the 20s. This one right here. I could easily pick the payoff episode of really this isn't even a payoff episode. It's not. To me the episode to pick would be the one, the one that's coming up, where Victoria sees a ghost. I'm not picking that episode because this episode, to me, builds that goddamn episode in every way. Really, Dark Shadows probably, to me, in my view, has always been this gothic, ghostly tale. And it's been building toward that the whole time. And this episode just further cements that. I'll get into what I mean here in a moment. You have a conversation between Carolyn and Victoria in the Collinwood drawing room, and how Carolyn is, talking about Burke Devlin and being in his room, and she tells Victoria not to worry. She had a chaperone, the sheriff, and soon Carolyn realizes, oh wait, that Vicky was meaning the bleeder valve, that David is the one who tried to kill Roger. And even she doesn't want to believe it right away, but she soon does. She knows Vicky wouldn't lie. And she says, we sure do breed him in this house. She said, how do you think they would feel about this? About how Jeremiah and Isaac would feel about this whole process, about David being an attempted murderer. And, after a while, they decide to both go look for David, because Vicky does say because Carolyn asks where her mother is, have they tried the basement? And Vicky says, I believe that's where your mother is now. Notice she doesn't say, I know that's where your mother is now. She says, I think. Because, it's a house of 40 rooms. You could literally be anywhere. So we cut from the drawing room to Bangor, Maine, baby. And Burke Devlin's lawyer, who was called because of. We're going to find out that Burke called his lawyer early and had him arrive here well before he was ready, because he expected more days to get all the Collins family research and notes and outstanding bank debts. He expected more time, but in a rushed way. He came here. By the way, he wasn't really sure what hotel he was coming to, which gets mentioned. Um, So, not all here, but it gets mentioned, and it's a really good scene between Burke and his lawyer. She, he also tells his lawyer that you're the one handling this, not me. Um, he, the one of the more interesting lines, he says he wants to do a job on that family, meaning the Collins family. You could tell Burke's ready to ready to strike at the Collins family, at least at the heart of them. Back in Collinwood, up in the upstairs hallway, again, Leela Swift, who directs this episode in Dan Curtis Productions, they're shooting the West Wing door. Remember what I said in the previous episode? We're getting a tease that we're going to go into the West Wing. I want to mention this here. This is the episode where Victoria, where you can really tell the stories of the ghost, the widows, the house being haunted, is finally getting to Victoria. This is that episode 27. So, when people say Dark Shadows from the beginning is born, yeah, they're full of shit. It's not. It really isn't. And you don't get that exactly here in this scene, but I'll tell you when you do get it. You do get Carolyn and Vicky outside in the hallway. They're near the West Wing door. They're not exactly, they're in front of it, but they're not directly in front of it. They're just a few feet away. And they hear strange sounds coming from behind the door. They see the door knob turn and open. They ask who's there. No one answers. You hear the sound of keys, which means it's a person. And there's Joan Bennett. You notice Joan Bennett flashes a bit of a smile in the sequence that here that's going to happen, which I love. By the way, we quickly cut back to the. Oh no, sorry. You get. I love how you get Joan Bennett, who flashes a bit of a smile. She comes out with her keys in hand. They talk about the sound they heard. She goes, "You probably heard me dropping my keys. I bent down to pick them up," which gives the excuse to why we heard the keys rattling around. I like that. I like how the writers cover that, and so does Joan's character, Elizabeth. Covers that, and Elizabeth asks to speak to Victoria in her bedroom. They go in there, and this scene here, the scene in Victoria's bedroom, is my favorite scene between Joan Bennett, Elizabeth, and Alexandra's Victoria Winters, because this is where you can tell that the stories of the ghosts, the widows, the house being haunted is finally getting to Victoria. This scene specifically here. It's such a great scene. If you're not a Dark Shadows fan, and I picked an episode for you to watch, this would be that episode. Simply because, number one, they've been building this whole time the story and legends of ghosts surrounding the Collins family and the Collins estate, and inside the Collins house itself. They've been building up that this house is haunted, not just the house, but the grounds themselves. You've been building this up this whole time for 26 episodes solid, and finally your main protagonist, the young pretty governess Victoria Winters, played by Alexandra Morkey, has has reached her breaking point. She's starting to think the house may be haunted finally. And this is all before she sees the ghost in the drawing room, or at least standing by the drawing room door. This is why episode 27 is my favorite episode. In many ways, it doesn't necessarily pay anything off, but it also lets you know that Victoria has reached her limit of the ghost tales, that she is slowly starting to believe in the ghosts themselves, because she questions Elizabeth about all this. She questions Elizabeth about what's in the West Wing, and hearing sounds. she's reached it. But Joan Bennett to Elizabeth says, I'm not really worried about the West Wind. I'm worried about David. She questions about Victoria about what she really did see, and was the bleeder valve ever really there? Victoria Winters, Alexander's character, confirms yes, it was. And here is Carolyn to the rescue, coming in Vicky's room. She goes, Sherlock Holmes to the rescue. It's a nice little mention there. And she has a key in her hand, and she unlocks Vicky's dresser drawer. She goes, where'd you get that key? And Elizabeth does explain that that dresser drawer set, is a match to the one in Carolyn's room. So there aren't just two dresser drawers, there are two keys to the locks on those dresser drawers. Beautiful, fucking beautiful writing. Beautiful goddamn writing. Dark Art Wallace, you are a mastermind. And again, Leela Swift directs this episode to perfection, so who better than Leela Swift to direct this goddamn episode? Because again, you're not... In every way, though this is not a payoff episode, you're confirming some things. You're confirming that Vicky is starting to sort of break on the ghost stories, that her character is sort of starting to feel the strain of it. You're also, in this episode, you see Carolyn find the magazine of the bleeder valve, and Carolyn asks where she got it, and there's a very well-thumbed page to the master brake cylinder where the bleeder valve was removed. Victoria says she got it. It was a gift from David, and Joan Bennett Elizabeth says that's an odd gift. You can say that again. And really what you're getting throughout this episode too is the stress of Burke Devlin moving in on the Collins family as well. Because in this episode, what you really get is Burke finds out that his lawyer sent the letter to Burke, and he goes, "You sent it here?" He goes, "No, I sent it to where you were. I didn't even know what hotel I was staying at or where I was coming to. You until you phoned me." And finally, Burke said, "If anyone sees that letterhead, that letter with your letterhead on it, your head's gonna roll." Basically, he goes, "Well, maybe no one. Burke's lawyer maybe will notice, and no one will notice." And I love Burke's line. In that town, everybody notices everything. It's true. And when they really notice something, they end up 6 feet under, or they just end up as a corpse. They end up on the bottom of Widow's Hill with face first on the rocks below. They hit harder than Ric Flair hit the wrestling mat. For sure. Back at Collinwood, by the way, you get the fact that Elizabeth calls Roger and says, try to find that David is missing, and Carolyn asks, "Is Uncle Roger coming?" And she says, "Useless, utterly useless." She's talking about her brother. I think also Liz too feels useless too in this episode. I don't think she is just talking about Roger. I think we're getting character vocal frustration, that it's frustrating that again, this episode is great for this reason too. Yes, we get all the little breakdown of Victoria Winters, but what we also get to is this, as I talked about the stress of Burke Devlin, we also get the stress of Liz again too in this episode. That Liz, I get the feeling when rewatching this episode that Liz feels that she waited too long to get David any kind of help, or at least she's starting to feel that way by this episode, especially knowing, because you could, again, in the previous episode, I talked about that I do believe Liz believed Victoria. You can really see that in that episode here. Yeah, she's worried that he's gone, but she also somewhat believes it too, that David did do it. She's going to continue to poke at Victoria, but she knows. she pokes because she wants Victoria to be wrong, even though she knows Victoria is not. Um, Great scene. Just marvelous. We also get, Elizabeth telling Carolyn to go search the grounds, and Carolyn does question her mother why she didn't tell Roger the truth. Does she want Uncle Roger to go on accusing Burke? And what Elizabeth says here, she says that she doesn't know if Miss Winters is right or not. Miss Winters thinks this is denial. This right here is great character denial, even though you can tell the character knows it's true. It's a great. You want to look at how great of an actress Joan Bennett really was? Go fucking watch any episode from number 1 to number 27 on of Dark Shadows and then forward. This woman sold her fucking ass off, and you best goddamn believe it. She did. I mean, my God, what an actress, the late Joan Bennett. Oh my God, just too good. Back at Bangor, so we're gonna end it. So, oh my God, that's where things are gonna end. Burke calls Collingwood and checks and see if any mails arrived for him. He finds out no, but he also finds out that the sheriff searched his room. He's like, "What? What happened?" He hands up the phone to his lawyer. He's like, "Well, what happened?" He goes, "The sheriff searched my room." And that's not all. A little boy was caught outside my room by the bell by Mr. Wells, obviously, and he says a little boy, and Burke shakes his head and then leaves. So Burke is headed back to Collinsport. Oh, by the way, we're still on day 3. This is Vicky's second full day on the job. We're still on that day. We're on that day. We're still on that day. We haven't hit nighttime yet, but we will. Oh my God. Oh my God. No David Hennessy in this episode. You want to know why? Less is more. Because again, it builds great tension to where David really is. It builds great tension to where the character could be, because we don't know. We know he was, again, episode 26 teases that David's going to run away. Episode 27, David's gone. He has run away, and he's taken the bleeder valve with him, ladies and gentlemen. What an episode 27 really is, and it's my I'm picking this episode as my favorite episode in the 20s, because though it's not a payoff, we're adding further you're not adding necessarily anything necessarily new, but you're confirming certain things about the characters. Victoria is starting to believe that the house may be haunted. Elizabeth, though she's denying her nephew, you can see it in her face that she knows it's true. Yeah, she's gonna yell at Victoria some more, but it's just adult stuff. That's saying that's anger. That's anger. Oh my God. And again, to sort of further cement why I didn't pick the episode where the first real ghost actually appears, because it would have been too. Number one, this, the 26 episodes that come before episode 27 really build to this moment. And episode 27, though not a payoff episode, is further building, stretching out the bleeder valve incident. It's further letting you know of Burke's attentions, of how characters are somewhat changing to a degree. Not big changes, But remember, Victoria went in this, I've talked about doubting Thomases are a lot of fun because they're either A, right, or they're B, wrong. And to sort of see them make the change to make those characters start to think, well, could I be wrong? And that's sort of where Alexandra's head, her character's head is at. Could I be wrong and this house really be haunted? Is a fun little tease for the character. And it's a fun little development ploy. Dark Shadows, the beginning episodes, not boring at all. Unlike Ghostwatch. It's a little fun over Patrick. Shout out to those two gentlemen. Episode 27, guys. I hope you enjoyed the review. And yeah, go watch Dark Shadows. It's free on Tubi. It's a fun watch. And just great, great acting and really, really smart writing. I'll see you guys.